Hello friends, welcome to Star Explainer. Tales of Herding Gods Part 4:18 explains based on novel. So let's start explanation. Qin Mu sent the memorial asking to leave the celestial heavens to travel to the Jade Capital's numinous sky hall. Soon, Celestial Emperor approved it and gave him a heavenly dragon treasure carriage, as a show of his authority, as a celestial venerable. Qin Mu knew the approval came from the 10 celestial venerables, not Celestial Emperor. There were grudges between them, and they were busy trying to suppress one another. It was to the point that they didn't even have time for the Great Void or Carefree Village. Qin Mu's stay in the celestial heavens wasn't useful to them, so they let him out with some surveillance. Yun Chuxiu tagged along too. Qin Mu was visibly unnerved. I'm leaving the celestial heavens this time to find the ancestral court of the masters of creation, visit the ancient gods of each realm, and to avoid the celestial heavens and summon the soul of Celestial Venerable Yun. Yet, you came to provoke and spy on me. He, Divine Knife Luo has cut you down once, he won't be afraid of doing it again. Qin Mu was satisfied with the heavenly dragon treasure carriage, for it was luxurious, and was pulled by 9 heavenly dragons at the Jade Capital realm. Although it paled in comparison to Divine King Lang Wo's carriage, it was still the most luxurious carriage Qin Mu has ever used. You're dead. Yun Chuxiu exclaimed upon seeing the carriage. She was excited to the point of trembling. Qin Mu angrily replied, You're the dead one. How dare you speak like this to me? I'm Celestial Venerable Mu. These 9 heavenly dragons are from East deity Qing Long's bloodline, which you are going to see at the East Pole, right? Yun Chuxiu gleefully said, when he sees how you are using his relatives to pull your carriage, he will be furious. Aren't you dead? Qin Mu improvised and said, then I will have them sit in the carriage while I get Fatty Dragon to pull it. Yun Chuxiu examined the canopy and said, You're still dead. Look at the heavenly Tao web imprinted on the canopy. The orbital track of the stars on it resembles Heaven Duke. When we reach him, he will kill you. Qin Mu's face was as black as charcoal as he entered to observe it. The heavenly Tao web formed Heaven Duke's figure. Using him to shelter oneself would anger him greatly. Look beneath the carriage too. Yun Chuxiu looked at the bottom of the carriage, waving at him and telling him, come. The formation markings here are the black tortoise's markings. When you ride, you are essentially crushing the black tortoise. When the black tortoise of the North Pole sees this, he will kill you too. Qin Mu came to her side, and they looked at the bottom of the carriage. She was indeed telling the truth, which made Qin Mu's face even blacker. The golden chrome of the carriage has formation markings of white tiger's stripes. It's indestructible and can break all obstacles. The stripes are on the handle too. Yun Chuxiu jumped back into the carriage and examined the seats, gleefully saying, You are sitting on West deity White Tiger while grabbing her head. Would she allow that? Qin Mu's heart was pounding when he asked, Is there more? There are the vermilion bird markings at the back of the carriage to form its rainbow wings. Would South deity Vermilion Bird tolerate you using her as the tail of your carriage? Yun Chuxiu jumped on the carriage shaft and picked up the whip on it, smiling and saying, The driver sits here with the whip in his hand, yet the shaft has the great Tao of Yudu on it, which allows the carriage to ignore it and drive straight into Yudu. Qin Mu relaxed and said, I have good relations with Earth Count. It's fine to draft the great Tao of Yudu. Yun Chuxiu coldly smiled. Earth Count uses a whip. Your driver sitting here uses a whip too. Will Earth Count let you off? Qin Mu's face was as black as iron as he furiously said, This carriage was given to me by you lot, the 10 celestial venerables. It's none of my business. Besides, you're part of it, right? Who is to say that you're not part of this scheme? He was leaving to visit the ancient gods of each realm, which was the official reason given in court too. The celestial heavens gave him this carriage with the intent to get him killed. Yun Chuxiu shook her leg and said while smiling, "Yeah. I recommended this carriage, and everyone agreed, so we gave it to you." Qin Mu furiously humphed. Divine King Lang Wo had already approached and sat in the carriage. She sat in the seat next to the main seat and said, "This carriage isn't bad. Celestial Venerable, when are we setting off?" Yang stood on the Dragon Chiline's head while they ran towards them. Jutian Devil King was sitting on the Dragon Chiline's back with his legs crossed, but when they got near, he leaped to the carriage shaft. Yun Chuxiu smirked and passed the whip to him. Jutian Devil King took it and praised, "This carriage is good, it must be fast." Yun Chuxiu lifted her hands and rubbed her neck. Qin Mu rolled his eyes before asking Yang, "Sister Yang, have you seen Big Head?" Yang replied, "He has been learning with Qi Jui for the past few days. I ordered someone to find him. He should be here soon." The Dragon Chiline hopped in the carriage and slept on the carpet, while Yang flew from his head and landed on the carriage poles, fluttering her feathers. Soon, Shu Jun arrived. When he saw the carriage, he praised, "Good carriage. It's very luxurious." After saying that, he boarded it and sat on the right side of the main seat. Qin Mu was helpless and could only board it and sit in the main seat. Yun Chuxiu got on too. Seeing how there were no seats left, she wanted to sit on Qin Mu's laps. Qin Mu was going to kick her out, but Divine King Lang Wo smiled and said, "Sister, sit here. This seat is spacious." Yun Chuxiu squeezed into the seat with her as she giggled and said, "Sister Lang Wo, we are like biological sisters, which would explain why we look so similar." Divine King Lang Wo smiled and said, "Yeah." Yun Chuxiu blinked and looked at the willow leaf on her forehead. She curiously asked, "What's beneath that leaf, sister?" "You wouldn't want to know." Divine King Lang Wo smiled gently. Outside, Jutian Devil King waved his whip, and the dragons rose into the air, pulling the carriage with them. The wheels of the carriage moved and created a black tortoise peculiarity, enough to cross the long and winding celestial river. "Where are we going, Cult Master?" Jutian Devil King's voice came from the outside as he said, "There are many spirit energy mutual shift bridges in the celestial heavens that connect it to thousands of worlds. If we use one, we can save a lot of time." Qin Mu was going to speak when Yun Chuxiu excitedly interrupted him, saying, "The East Pole first." Qin Mu could no longer tolerate her. With a serious expression, he pointed at her, trembling. He laughed out of anger and said, "Yuan Mu, you have fallen like a broken can and lost all of your demeanor. Don't forget how I beat up your bastard child Celestial Venerable Xiao until he couldn't take care of himself for 1,000 years. It was even in front of you, and you couldn't do anything." Yun Chuxiu jumped on him and carefully hammered his legs. She looked up at him and pitifully said, "Don't be angry, Celestial Venerable. How do you know I'm Yuan Mu? Did someone reveal something in the Great Void? Although I do like it when you're angry." He had no way to unleash his anger, so he humphed. Yun Chuxiu smiled and said, "Hao isn't good at all. He schemed against his father and me. He was too weak to do it himself, so he hired Celestial Venerable Ling to deal with me instead. Luckily, I was smart enough to defend myself against Celestial Venerable Ling. I faked my death at her hands, allowing her to grant me my wish. I was originally angry about you beating him up, but I became happy that you did it." She hammered Qin Mu's legs and excitedly said, "A lot of Celestial Venerables will strike out against you during this trip, including Hao. You offended him too badly. People want to see him beat you up personally." Qin Mu said disappointingly, "It would be bad if Celestial Venerable Hao beat me to death. Go back to your seat to rest, there's no need to hammer my legs. Jutian, we are going to the primordial realm first instead of the East Pole. It has been a long time since I was there. I want to visit friends and relatives back home first. Duqian Devil King nodded and had the dragons pull the carriage towards a spirit energy mutual shift bridge. Yun Chuxiu excitedly ran out of the carriage to take in the view while holding onto its pole. Divine King Lang Wo looked at Qin Mu with some visible suspicion. Qin Mu used his consciousness to transmit his voice. She's Mistress Yuan Mu of the 10 Celestial Venerables. However, I don't know who among the 10 she is. Mistress Yuan Mu is an ancient god born from the ruins of End. She's the mistress of Celestial Emperor, and the younger sister of Celestial Empress. Her temper is weird. Divine King Lang Wo asked, as Mistress Yuan Mu of the ruins of End, shouldn't she act proper, dignified, and magnanimous? How is she like this? Qin Mu sighed. This Mistress Yuan Mu's personality had become elusive after taking on Zhu Wuchen's appearance. Xu Jun used his consciousness to cut into their communication and said, Ancient God Yuan Mu controlled the power to destroy everything. In the primordial era, she was like this, annoying yet lovable. Qin Mu glanced at him and asked, Divine King Xu Jun, did you know that the ancient Celestial Emperor was born from an egg? Xu Jun nodded and said, I did. Qin Mu hastily asked, then, where did the egg come from? I don't know about that. Xu Jun shook his head and said, we don't know where the Grand Primordium Origin Stone and Grand Primordium Divine Stones came from either, nor do we know the origins of the primordial liquid, or the great beasts of the primordial era. The egg of the ancient Celestial Emperor was picked up by the Grand Emperor's people in the ancestral courts. I know little about this. Qin Mu frowned. Xu Jun continued, accordingly, the Grand Emperor's clan realized that the egg was big and filled with life after discovering it. Thus, the life had to be older than us, just dormant. In the early days, they even worshipped it like a holy object. After finding the Grand Primordium Divine Stones, we became gods, so they threw the egg away. Someday, someone took it out and continued to worship it. It was then that the ancient Celestial Emperor was born from it. They created their own tragedies. He shook his head and sighed. The breaking out of the ancient Celestial Emperor from his egg was the beginning of the Masters of Creation's extinction. Which Celestial Venerables, in your opinion, will strike out against you during this trip? Divine King Lang Wo inquired. Just now, Yuan Mu said that Celestial Venerable Hao will strike. Besides him, who else will? Yun Chuxiu poked in and said, we entered the Spirit Energy Mutual Shift Bridge. What are you guys talking about? Qin Mu calmed himself down, looked at the howling light outside, and said, we were talking about who will strike out against me during this trip outside of the celestial heavens. Mistress Yuan Mu, I believe you think someone's trying to kill me this time, right? Don't call me Yuan Mu. I'm Yun Jianli's younger sister now. I'm following you down to find my brother. Yun Chuxiu thought about it and said, every celestial venerable has a reason to do so, even me. However, the celestial heaven still has a lot of secrets that you aren't privy to. The one you harmed the most isn't Hao, it's the Grand Emperor. He hid well enough, yet you revealed that he's amongst us. I don't think he will sit well with that. Qin Mu asked, if you can guess that the Grand Emperor will strike, the other celestial venerables probably guess that too. Will he still strike? Yun Chuxiu blinked, and after a while, leisurely said, the celestial heavens had an 11th celestial venerable. However, he has been dead for 40,000 years. He was the one who used the ancient celestial emperor's corporeal body to kill celestial venerable Ling. He was trapped to death in her divine art. His corporeal body should still be intact. If is the Grand Emperor and is still alive, this corporeal body of his will mobilize. She smiled. If he does use it to kill you, no one will be able to expose him. Qin Mu's heart shuddered as he let out a ragged breath. How smart. He won't be able to hide if his corporeal body leaves the celestial heavens. In that case, you guys. Yun Chuxiu shook her head and said, "It's not in the celestial heavens." Qin Mu was slightly stunned. Yun Chuxiu giggled and said, "He was buried in the primordial realm. I told you to go to the East Pole first, yet you insisted on going to the primordial realm. Aren't you seeking death?" Qin Mu's mind was blown. Suddenly, the carriage stopped, and Juqian Devil King said, "Cult Master, we're at the primordial realm." It was way easier to travel to any place with the spirit energy mutual shift bridges. The primordial realm was large and vital, so the number of bridges that were connected to it were plenty. Qin Mu looked out and saw that the place was a spirit energy mutual shift bridge in the center of the primordial realm, built on a divine city in the air. They weren't far from the primordial tree. He frowned and asked, "Juqian, why didn't we head straight to eternal peace?" Before Juqian Devil King could reply, Yun Chuxiu smiled and said, "Eternal peace is small, so there are only 2 spirit energy mutual shift bridges that connect to it. One is under my control, and the other is in the Patriarch Creation Palace. You can only reach this divine city via the other bridges. This divine city is called Yuanju and is the center of the primordial realm." Qin Mu's heart fluttered as he retrieved his passport to get Juqian Devil King to search for the land's god general to file a record. He indifferently asked, "The primordial realm of today is in which celestial venerable's hands?" He sized up his surroundings and saw how Yuanju was grand and heavily guarded. It was at an altitude of 20,000 miles, and it monitored the transportation of the heavens of the primordial realm. Many Daoist were flying in the air on clouds to pluck down the sun, moon, and stars from the sky to roll up the heavens. That was heavenly painting. The new one should have been created. The original one was tattered and too small to cover the entire sky of the primordial realm, so these Taoists of the celestial heavens Tao sect were taking it down. Yun Chuxiu looked up and shockingly said, "You don't know. Originally, the primordial realm was supposed to be in Celestial Venerable Xiao's hands, but he was too rash, and was taken advantage of by Celestial Venerable Xiao." She pitifully sighed. Celestial Venerable Xiao is sly and cunning. He forced Celestial Venerable Xiao away when he was injured in the fight with Mother Earth, who had just resurrected, to occupy the primordial realm for himself. This primordial realm is powerful. It was previously called Yuanju, and had a lot of resources. However, Celestial Emperor ordered Yuanju's resources to be mined to build the celestial heavens. Qin Mu's heart shuddered. He listened to almost nothing in the latter half of her speech. If Celestial Venerable Xiao acquired the primordial realm, then he was the being that the ancient Celestial Emperor's soul morphed into, in the celestial heavens. Qin Mu originally thought that Celestial Venerable Qiong was the ancient Celestial Emperor, but he was wrong. Or perhaps the ancient Celestial Emperor has 2 identities in the celestial heavens. One is Celestial Venerable Xiao, while the other is Heavenly Lady Qiong. Qin Mu smiled. "Good sister, how well do you know Celestial Venerable Xiao?" Yun Chuxiu blinked and alarmingly said, "When you want me to tell you things, you honey up your mouth and call me good sister. After that, I become a vixen that you guard against. Why do you want to know about Celestial Venerable Xiao?" Qin Mu sincerely said, "I've been in the celestial heavens for quite some time. I spent almost 5 years there, and yet I know nothing about him. He's a mysterious person to me, which is why I would like your guidance. Good sister, you shouldn't be too estranged from Celestial Venerable Xiao, right?" Yun Chuxia rolled her eyes and said, "He's a hero of mankind. You should have a favorable impression of him. He once became the first Celestial Emperor of the South High Emperor Celestial Heavens with the help of Celestial Venerable Ling." Qin Mu didn't know what to say. Yun Chuxiu saw his expression of shock, and couldn't help but laugh. "What's with the look on your face? Celestial Venerable Xiao has another identity, the disciple of Celestial Venerable Yun and Celestial Venerable Yu. He followed them ever since the Dragon Han era, and could be regarded as the most radical figure in the Heaven Alliance. He has wanted to eliminate the ancient gods for a long time now. He even wants to eliminate Celestial Venerable Hao, God Emperor Lang Xian, and Ancestral God King. Qin Mu was stunned to silence, as if he was struck by lightning. Celestial Emperor was Celestial Venerable Yun and Celestial Venerable Yu's disciple. He even became Celestial Venerable Ling's disciple too. Celestial Venerable Xiao was very active during the Dragon Han and Crimson Light eras. He's pretty xenophobic, however, as he views half-gods and ancient gods with hostility, causing him to not be too welcomed by people. Yun Chuxiu said, Celestial Venerable Yun and Celestial Venerable Yu were also helpless in dealing with his radical ideas, so they kicked him out over some trivial matter. However, unexpectedly, he became quite close to Celestial Venerable Ling. When Celestial Venerable Yun died and Celestial Venerable Yu went into seclusion, Celestial Venerable Ling valued him greatly, and helped him become the South High Emperor. Qin Mu felt muddle-headed and couldn't say much. The other Celestial Venerables also don't welcome him much, because of how he was Celestial Venerable Yun, and Celestial Venerable Yu's disciple on top of how he got close to Celestial Venerable Ling. He is also a secluded person that rarely shows himself in public. Yun Chuxiu plainly said, I suspect that one of the Celestial Venerables who saved you at the Jade Pool was him. Qin Mu calmed himself and called on Zhuqian Devil King and the others, saying, let's go to eternal peace. The Dragon Qilin probed him, asking, Cult Master, do you really want to go to eternal peace? What about the Grand Emperor's corpse? Qin Mu smiled. The primordial realm is Celestial Venerable Xiao's territory. What is there to be afraid of? Celestial Venerable Xiao is a human and protects his people. When the Eternal Peace calamity occurred, he was the one who protected the humans of eternal peace. If the Grand Emperor really dares to come, he won't be able to return. The Dragon Qilin said to Zhuqian in a panic, Brother Zhuqian, head back to the celestial heavens now. Qin Mu kicked him and coldly laughed. Idiot, do you not trust a human like Celestial Venerable Xiao? With Celestial Venerable Xiao here, I won't be in danger. The Dragon Qilin mumbled, but Celestial Venerable Xiao isn't here. Qin Mu pointed and smiled. Who says so? His divine weapon Celestial Venerable Yu is suppressing the primordial realm. If I encounter danger, he will trigger it to save us. Zhuqian Devil King brought the passport back and said, Cult Master, we have made the record. Qin Mu laughed with great enthusiasm, before waving and saying, Celestial Venerable Xiao knows I'm here. Since that's the case, let's return to eternal peace. The 9 dragons chanted as they grew to become divine dragons that were hundreds of miles long. They rose into the air, pulling the carriage with them as they followed a long river extending towards the east in the air. The 9 heavenly dragons followed the river at a speed that could outmatch lightning. At the same time, in the south of the primordial realm, there was a mountain called Celestial Venerable Ridge in a mountain range. It was a deep place and was surrounded by fog and mist. When gods and devils entered by accident, they couldn't escape. It was said that the place had a Celestial Venerable buried in it. A dozen heavens surrounded it to guard it, but no one dared to enter. Today, the ridge was filled with boiling flames and many peculiarities. All sorts of lights came from the ridge, causing the gods of the heavens stationed around it to look down from their clouds. Dazzling lights were emanating from it as if something was coming out of it. Many gods and devils became tempted as they said, Rumor has it that this place has a Celestial Venerable buried in it. Could its treasure have been unearthed today? Stationing us here was to take advantage of us. Many gods and devils flew into the ridge to find the treasure. This Celestial Venerable Ridge was treacherous, however, and many of the gods and devils that entered never returned. A burp was all that was heard from the ridge. Now that these idiots sacrificed themselves to me, I can go and recharge some of my parched essence and blood. In the ridge, many skeletal gods and devils, who were wearing large robes with large sleeves, flew out. They were carrying a large copper coffin out of the ridge. Their robes fluttered as they carried it with the wind. Yuandu City. The generals guarding Yuandu City went to the celestial palace on the canopy of the primordial tree. They entered the numinous sky hall of the jade capital quickly, and kowtowed to a god statue on the throne, before telling it about how celestial Venerable Mu had arrived. That god statue was seemingly made out of clay, yet it opened its eyes when it heard the news and replied, "I already know about this. You may withdraw." The generals withdrew. That clay statue coldly smiled. "This be **starred, giving me more trouble. You should have gone to the East Pole, yet you must come to the primordial realm. The Grand Emperor won't let you go. If I save you, the other celestial venerables will know that I was one of the 3 celestial venerables who acted to save you at the Jade Pool. If I don't save you, you will die. This is hard, hard." The divine weapon Celestial Venerable Yu in the air was slowly recovering, and its aura was being raised. At the same time, a door appeared out of nowhere in the primordial tree's celestial palace. The clay god statue was stunned. This door opened again. When it opened the last time, people claimed they saw Celestial Venerable Mu and a devil coming out of it to kill many of my experts. My great army surrounded him, yet they couldn't capture him. Now, this door has opened again. What could it be this time? The door opened, and a middle-aged man appeared. He had thick eyebrows and large eyes that complemented his impressive appearance. His fringe was white, and his gaze revealed his age. His clothes were ordinary, and at his waist was a sword. He just appeared in the primordial tree celestial palace like this as he looked up into the sky. He seemed grateful, and his lips moved as if he was going to speak. "I dreamt of being in this place again. I have so much nostalgia for this place. I have aged so soon." He gave a long sigh and swept his gaze. Hundreds of miles away, Celestial Venerable Xiao's god statue in the numinous sky hall was blown to pieces. The middle-aged man felt a shred of chill run down his spine as he tightened his collar. He crossed his arms in front of his chest and left. This land is finally back to its original shape. Unfortunately, the people from then are no longer here. He released a series of long sighs before disappearing. In the numinous sky hall, that clay god statue reassembled itself into a person made out of clay. He jumped from his throne and rushed out of the hall. He stared at the door, but that middle-aged man was nowhere to be seen. "Qin Yi, Celestial Venerable Qin." A human voice came from the clay person as it mumbled, "He came out of Carefree Village. This is a big deal. This traitor can no longer sit and wait in Carefree Village." He looked up at the divine weapon Celestial Venerable Yu, but was hesitant to use it. It wasn't in his best interest to use it to kill founding Emperor Qin Yi. There was no need for him to fight to the death with founding emperor. Should I inform the other Celestial Venerables about the appearance of Celestial Venerable Qin? The clay man stopped and went back to the throne in the numinous sky hall, closing his eyes. Ignore him and pretend not to know about him. Since Qin Yi appeared, he won't allow Celestial Venerable Mu to be killed by the Grand Emperor. Thus, I shall sit this one out and reap the benefits later. Stop the carriage. Qin Mu suddenly spoke, when the carriage was at the upstream of the surging river. He said, "Zhu Qian, we are near my hometown, and I feel unnerved since I haven't been there in a long time. Let's walk from here." Zhu Qian Devil King was perplexed as he asked, "Cult Master, you are that kind of person too? If we walk, it will take us days to reach eternal peace." "That's fine." Qin Mu smiled. The carriage descended and ran on the surging river. Qin Mu stepped out of the carriage, took out his jade bottle and a drop of the primordial liquid, and said, "I shall toast my hometown with a drop of this." That drop of primordial liquid fell into the river. After a while, the mountains around the surging river shook as if something large was rumbling beneath them, causing them to shake too. Part 4:18 end here. Thank you for watching.